Hey, welcome back to the session. This is episode 3. Once, twice, 3 times a lady, and I Love You. I don't remember who sings that song.
I don't either.
Off top, I want to say the guy who sings Sweet Caroline.
Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond. Off top, I want to say it's Neil Diamond. Probably not. Check me in the comments on that. Today, we got episode 3 with my special guest here, Keeran Woode. It's been a busy month for me personally, you musically and personally. You've been rocking shows with multiple bands that you play percussion in town.
Yes.
We'll get into a little bit more of that. I wanted to start by obviously just thanking you for coming in and being a guest.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to start with saying like, oh, you know, we met, you know, so-and-so. I usually do that with like the previous 2 episodes, but we didn't meet that long ago.
No. I was thinking about that actually watching the Flannel interview. I was like, wait, when did I meet this guy?
Yeah. So we met, I mean, I want to place it like October of last year, maybe, or
late October. Yeah, late October.
Or maybe even like November, because there was a Dastat and like a Eddie Branch, Flannel Lewis.
Was this at the skate shop art?
I believe so.
That was our first Dastat show.
Okay,
believe it or not.
Because that was crazy. That was the one that I just remember. Like Eddie Branch hit me up and was like, "Oh man, you gotta slide."
Right.
So that was the first time we met. We didn't chop it up really until this last month or 2 months. We got into a really nice conversation at Malcolm's.
Yes, oh man. Well, it was so funny because like I've heard about your you as a beatmaker, rapper, producer, doing all the music things. And he's like, yeah, there's this guy named Kamakauzzy. Like, he sometimes shows up at our shows. Like, and I remember someone I think it was Metro.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out Metro, by the way.
Yeah, Metro's awesome.
He was like, yeah, that's Kamakauzzy. I was like, oh, that's who that guy is.
Yeah. And then obviously there was a lot of festivities to be had that night. We got caught up in multiple conversations. One of which was like our appreciation for West African music.
Yes.
Which, that's just an awesome thing when I don't know, especially in Nebraska.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yes. Music. Well, it actually has an understanding of it.
Yeah. And we'll touch on it later, but you also have musical and familial roots.
Yes.
Too in Ghanaian music.
Yes, Ghanaian.
Okay. So your father was Morgan?
Morgan, yes.
Morgan Woode?
Morgan Woode, the late Morgan
Woode. So what can you tell me about his influence on you growing up and how that maybe formed any sort of appreciation for percussion, drums, anything like that?
So at least that the way that my mom tells me, my appreciation for music was practically in the womb. So long story short, my dad was a professional percussionist for about 30, 40 years, traveled internationally, went to Ghana, went to Europe, throughout there. He even had a tour in Hong Kong, believe it or not.
Okay.
Comes to Nebraska with a band called Ashanti back in the late 90s. At this time, my dad was still playing in the band and because he was, kind of hard on money and stuff because being a recent immigrant, it was kind of hard to, make a living.
Yeah.
He was staying with some other people in the band at their place. So it was they would have practice and stuff. And when my mom and my dad were expecting, I'd kind of be there, listening to it and taking in all the vibrations. My mom could not be around music because I upset her stomach so much. So they think that I was drumming in the womb, so to speak.
Yeah. What a beautiful story. And two, I feel like too many people put their kids onto just Coco Melon and the brain rot starts.
Oh man, I've got some students that play the Coco Melon theme song when they're during breaks at practices.
It's good if it's a joke, but
I don't know how much of it.
See, that's the thing with irony is you can be ironic, but at some point you start to become your irony, and then it's not ironic anymore, and then you're trapped. On the tip of being a really early indoctrinate into, playing drums and stuff like that. What's your earliest memory of actually playing an instrument?
For me, I would say I was in preschool at the time.
Okay.
My dad was working as a janitor at one of the schools in the district, and they had, for a Christmas program or something, like during like the, like the halfway point or the end of this, like the school year. I remember my dad and I, we put on our, like, maybe not the first performance, but like the first one that I remember. So I was like
Okay.
4 years old playing with my dad in front of my classmates.
Do you
in
remember what
preschool.
that performance was, or?
It was just kind of a demonstration of African music.
Okay. I remember some of those like cultural representation days when I was in elementary school. I went to school in Omaha.
Okay.
So there was
nice.
a lot of
yes.
like, I don't know, just a lot of different cultures, very much crammed in the north and northwest sections. And
Oh yeah.
it was fun to live in there and be very open to that level of community. So what brought you to percussion as you grew older?
I think for me, my dad started teaching me when I was 2, but I'd already kind of like imitated a lot of the percussion movements and trying to act like a drummer or whatever.
Yeah.
But I would say some of my most formative experiences in terms of music would actually start around 4th grade or so. So at this point, my dad was a percussionist, but he also played a little bit of drum set. So because my dad was the janitor at the same elementary school that I went to, he was like, "Hey, music teacher, my son plays drums.
Yeah.
Put him in your show."
Okay.
So I played at some of like the Christmas programs and like.
And you had that in too. That kind of.
I think
eased
it
the way.
definitely helped.
Nice.
Well, anyway, at this point, our school district had 5th grade band, so the middle school band directors would come to the elementary schools to give like individual sections lessons and stuff. Apparently, the band director that was going there had seen me play, and he was like, "Hey, this guy's good enough to play in our middle school jazz band."
Okay.
My dad didn't know if I should, just because they wanted me to focus on trying to be a kid and focus on school stuff. But he's like, "Hey, give him sheet music and the CD, and they'll try it out." And
I imagine jazz band in middle school can be very taxing.
I mean, in terms of like scheduling and stuff, because
yeah.
trying to drive between the local middle school and the elementary school
True.
in the mornings, depending on how late the rehearsals go, because I sometimes can, because they assume that everyone's
and
in the same.
That schedule kind of run. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
So it was like, I don't know, but it was like one of those things. Like, I think having that opportunity to do something kind of like that, like really, like, I mean, I learned to read sheet music that summer just seeing it fly by as like the recording played.
Okay.
I want to credit that to Tony Rishling, the late Tony Rishling. He was the guy, and I think like having that experience really shaped my love for a lot of the jazz influence that I also.
Okay, because I did music composition in my maybe junior year of high school, and they taught us how to read notation with this program called like Sibelius.
Yes, it's
like
still
that.
around.
Oh, thank God for that, I guess. But it was good in kind of teaching me how to get used to like, this is a 5, scale bar or whatever.
Right.
Notating rests and stuff like that.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, 1, none of it retained.
Right.
And 2, I feel like it wasn't the right kind of tactile experience where, there's something that just.
There's something so influential about experiencing something.
Yeah, especially too, like I remember being more of a child, maybe 10 or something, and having piano lessons where I would read Mary Mary Had a Little Lamb or something on a notation book, but that's one thing entirely. I'm pretty much just phoning that in, not really actually learning the theory of the composition and stuff like that, which I think doesn't make or break the artist at all, but man, it is interesting how I've seen so many people get into music and be like, oh, I have a pretty good grasp on it. And
Right.
then they start learning like music theory,
Mhm.
notation, composition, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know anything.
Right. Well, and I think that's kind of spurs a little bit of debate, you know. So I kind of have this, try to kind of work this in myself. So one of the many jobs that I do is that I'm the percussion instructor at Grand Island Senior High School.
Okay.
Working with the marching percussion and stuff. And I was having a conversation and someone asked me like how I teach and stuff. And I try to get about a 50-50 split between reading sheet music and just being able to, you know, learn things by rote memory to increase, you know, and giving them some freedom to groove along with things.
Yeah.
And I think for me, you know, there's, especially as I think from a percussionist perspective, it's really hard to have a joy for percussion if you can't groove a little bit or be able to play musically, because you know you can't guarantee, like, say for instance, you know you want to play, you know, you show up at a jazz jam for instance, you can't guarantee that you'll be able to like read your solos off of sheet music. So you want to be able to have at least the ability to think musically and to try to exercise some of that creativity.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's where a lot of the fun improvisational aspect of playing with people who aren't classically trained.
Right.
I always think of the story of Picasso, I think it is, who, and you know, fuck Picasso. I don't know what he did, but I seen them pictures.
I don't.
Seen them artworks.
We can discuss art taste later.
But no, Picasso aside, he, you know, later into his art career, tried to capture more of like the abstractness of drawing like a child or drawing like somebody who never knew how to draw. So there's like such a primal thing, and I always tell like my friends who are getting into music and stuff,
Right.
like, oh, you should enjoy being like in, you know, not inept, but like in the learning
Right,
process,
right.
because as soon as you learn it and then you learn all the other things, you're gonna hit either a peak or a plateau where
Right.
you can either jump off or explore that peak and stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of conquer music as if it's this this unfun dragon or something
Right.
that needs to be slayed, and
Mhm.
then it just takes somebody who doesn't know anything about music and is really just interested in
Right.
how beautiful harmonies are.
Right, I know.
melodies
Well,
are.
this kind of brings me to some of the appeal. Like, you know, we were kind of talking about before we started recording anyway, talking
Yeah.
about like outsider music.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, to the conventional ear, it's, you know, it doesn't sound good, or it sounds elementary, but it's just
Yeah.
like, you know, for them, what we might consider elementary is like their highest achievement. Like
Yeah.
they tried their best.
And working with what they have
Right.
to achieve the best.
Music is a very means related, you know, thing to do.
Yeah. It is weird how people will justify the ends to make the means, I feel like, in some circumstances. Yes, exactly. It is definitely just a joyous thing to experience and share with others too. The communal aspect of music, I feel like, is so overlooked sometimes. I'm sad that there's not more. And I mean, like, you know, we have some spaces that do it, like Zubar's got some
Catalyst Sessions.
Catalyst Sessions. Shouts out Zubar, shouts out Catalyst
Yes.
Sessions.
Awesome place. Awesome history.
They do foster a lot of that, you know, like, come on, bring in your guitar,
Right,
bring in your amp, bring in
right.
your stuff, and
Right.
just jam with the crew and stuff like that. And that's something that I feel like is sorely missed in the grand scheme of maybe
Right.
like our local music scene. Imagine if there was just like a park where it was like
Right.
fucking every second Tuesdays
Right.
there's a jam session.
Right. I mean, it's like one of those things. Like, I mean, I know, like, for instance, like, there's a couple times where I went to like Roots Music Store, and like seeing
Yeah.
like, so it's like, yeah, hey, jam at like, this time that's like 2 weeks ago, and it's just like, if those places were able to advertise those a lot more, I think it'd be, because jamming and playing in unison, I think, is so integral to our role in the music community, being able to use your ears, from multiple streams, and being able to play within those and kind of make,
Well, and the brain activity.
right.
That's going into
Oh my
the
goodness.
forethought of like, okay, we're here in the song, and we want to get to this point.
Right.
We have this much time.
Right.
And then you just start looking at each other.
It's like a kind of like a film composer trying to time out, certain, pieces of the composition. Hey, this, we're not playing 4/4 at, 120 beats a minute. We have to fill this 15-second time slot.
Yeah, it's so much. It's like a
You can think of music in so many different ways, man.
It's so fun, and I don't know. Everybody should get into music, but don't expect everything from music, because it should just be something you do for fun. Outside of that, what do you think? A lot of people maybe just don't understand about live percussion in the instrumentation of like live sets.
Right. I think, and people can debate me on this in the comments or whatever. I think people think that percussionists are like drum set players, but that just play different instruments.
Yeah.
I think, thinking like a percussionist is different than thinking like a drummer.
Yeah.
The mindset behind it, and, seeing some of the tradition and stuff behind some of the rhythms. Not every single conga player needs to learn all of like the traditional Cuban rumbas or anything.
Yeah.
But I think having some understanding about like the history of, the instrument and the history of all of the places where they come from, because percussion is such a diverse set of, places and influences, that I think that it's so much bigger than just congas, bongos, tambourines and stuff.
The Casio preset.
Right.
I also would add to that, I think Das Dat, your
Yes.
band that you're
Yes.
in with several of the other homies. We've talked with Eddie Branch and Flannel Lewis about getting more of y'all on here,
Yes.
like Malcolm, and I want to get Carco in, and even doing like a little too quiet set, and
Dude,
even
that'd be
you running
awesome.
some live percussion during
Dude,
that. Would
let's
be
do
sick as
it.
hell.
Let's do it.
I think, how y'all run your set, you have Malcolm pretty much doing drums,
Right.
not lead percussion,
Lead singing.
but lead singing drums, and then you on percussion, and it really starts to denote the difference between, okay, he's keeping rhythm, you're adding texture,
Right.
rhythmic flair, and more of like depth to
Right.
what he's
It's
playing.
definitely thinking like a percussionist, especially in most live settings. You're not necessarily going to be the timekeeper a
Yeah.
majority of the time. You are kind of playing the out of time things, so
Yeah,
to speak.
keeping the ghost notes.
Right. Because so much of the feel of music, denotes the kind of groove that's going on.
Yeah.
I was watching a percussion DVD that they still make them, but this
Okay.
one was from I think like 2002 or so, early 2000s.
Okay.
Luis Conte. He's a very famous percussionist.
Shouts out Luis.
He was talking about changing even the feel of when you play. There's a rhythm called tumba. I'll kind of show you here on
Okay.
on the table because I have hands.
I'm
and-
gonna bend this down.
There's this rhythm called tumba. Okay, here's how it goes. Right.
Okay.
But when you play that, you can adjust this part right here. You can adjust it to land on the backbeat rather than one of the offbeats like this.
Okay. Kind of giving it that swing, creating another pocket.
Right. So he was showing, like, the drummer would play the same beat, and the entire feel of the song would change because of where he put that accent. Is he playing on the offbeats, on like those, the secondary eighth notes, or are you playing just on the backbeats 2 and 4? Those changes in feel and changes in accentation really help make the drum sets shine as, kind of a drum set percussion unit.
Yeah. And further proves that for it to be more of that, full unit, it has to be two people operating it, because I couldn't imagine.
I mean, there are people that do it.
Yeah.
There are
the body
people.
work.
Oh my goodness! I was watching. There's a really cool up and coming Cuban one, like one of like the greats. That's gonna be that all out of there. I'm gonna make sure. Robert Junior Vizcaino. He's from Cuba, but I was watching. He was actually in Omaha, back in April with a very famous Latin pianist, Chucho Valdez, and he was playing a full drum set with congas and cowbells as down here on extra pedals, and I was just like, oh dude, I'll have to show you after the interview.
Okay, yeah. We got a couple more questions here, and I'm just honestly gonna get right back into it. So thank you so much for tuning in, Keeran. You we were talking about percussion and adding to adding to bands and adding to the substance of drums and stuff like that. And you've played in a variety of genres.
Yes.
Musically, everything from rock to funk, soul, R&B. I'd say even your independent stuff is very world influenced. It's definitely not tied to any one genre that you've previously worked on or anything like that. What is a genre that you think specifically you feel home at when you play?
Anything funk or Latin, I think for me. Not to say that African music isn't something that I gravitate towards, because it formed a lot of my love for percussion and stuff, but I feel just because of the community that I've grown up in, Latin music is just a lot more common.
Yeah.
I mean, Gloria Estefan said the rhythm's gonna get you.
One of these days I'll get it back. But so okay, that's interesting. I hear a lot of that influence too when y'all play live shows with Das Stat. I feel that that's pretty fun to be able to experiment too a little bit, flex a little, because I mean that as much as it probably feels like everything is so well orchestrated and y'all are math rocking all of this intricate shit, and signaling each other and stuff like that. I'm sure that there's a lot of improvisational openness.
Dude. Funnily enough, and I don't ever recommend this for any musician, I've never had a rehearsal with Das Stat.
Really?
Never.
Okay. Have you ever? I mean,
Malcolm would send me some of the originals that we do, send me some files, and that's it.
Yeah. I've been over there a few times where we were gonna all lay down some shit, and then it just got swept up into
Oh dude, I have 3 jams that immaculate jams over at Malcolm's that we have yet to because he's yeah, I'm gonna sample this, and
it just it gets swept up in the night.
It does.
What can you do? There's a lot of people I know who kind of operate like that, though, funnily enough, where I don't know, not even to maybe the degree where they haven't ever practiced with, all of the other members in the band or anything like that, but even to the degree of, oh, I'm a beat maker, and I don't have a set prepared for the show I'm playing tonight, so I'm just gonna go with my thing and see how it goes. And the courage it takes.
Dude. I tell you what, it was so funny. Just a couple nights ago, I was just really, I just got a new kind of audio setup, and so I was I was jamming up, and I was I had something that was going in my GarageBand over my speakers that was just really cool. So I was you know what? Why don't we just beat make and go live?
Yeah.
So I did an hour live video. It's on my main, my music Instagram, should I say? Cooking with Keeran Woode.
Yeah, and we'll plug that down below so you can check that out. Yeah, I saw that as well. So that was just you just jamming
Right.
in the space.
Oh
and
man, I was just like, I want
cooking
people
up.
to come jam with me, you know?
I've debated doing like the same thing, but I hate the idea of streaming on like Instagram and stuff
Yeah.
like that, just because I don't think the dedicated like stream quality
Right.
is there yet.
No.
I would love to have like flawless, at least like 720 with like
Right.
audible sound.
Uh-huh.
I want to say the newest SP404, the Mark III, and maybe even the 404A have a interface plug where you can essentially just plug right into your phone
Oh.
and have that audio be going in
Huh.
so that you're not getting the audio in from the external microphone.
Right.
It's just streaming into it, and it gives a lot cleaner audio. So, I don't know. I feel like I would want to get that figured out. I don't want to stream on Twitch.
No, not one of those guys.
Yeah, well, I just feel like it's a sinking ship.
Yeah.
Right now.
I could see where you're getting that.
I
I don't stream, so I'm just like,
Yeah, I would stream on YouTube if I thought this could be a cool. Maybe I'll do that when I have like my 50th show or something.
Ooh.
I'll have like a special guest and we'll have like an extravaganza or something. Don't hold me to that.
No, tell him in the comments. Hold
Yeah,
him to
no.
that.
Suggest who should it be? Who you want to see? Who you want to see next? So, Latin funk.
Yeah, I would
And-
say that would. I mean, like more like I would say like R&B and like
Yeah.
hip hop because we do kind of everything in kind of like the range of the Soulquarians, so to speak. Are
Yeah.
you familiar with the Soulquarians at all?
I want to say I've heard
Like Erykah Badu, Questlove,
Okay, yeah.
D'Angelo, Jay Dilla,
Yep.
like all these. I mean, they were never associated with each other. Like they were never in a band, but they all because they went to the same studio, they all like laid tracks down for each other.
Yeah. Jumping off. Well, I kind of wanted to ask too. How was it working with? Is it Stones the Throw?
Stone the Thrones.
Stone the Thrones, and then there was also Grave Key.
Grave Key, that was actually a session project.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was a punk band in Grand Island that needed a drummer.
So you did primarily just drums for
Yes.
Grave Key.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd laid down a little bit of percussion on one of the songs, but it was
Okay.
mostly a drum set thing for me. Yeah, no. So those are at least the bands that I've recorded with, so
Okay.
to speak. So I no longer play with Grave Key. So I've got Stone the Thrones, Das Dat. There's another Latin funk band out of Kearney called the Swimbirds that I play drum set for.
Okay.
And I've got two jazz bands little jazz combos that I have. There's the South Platte Jazz Quartet out of Hastings,
Okay.
as well as Standard Practice out of Grand Island.
Standard practice out of Grand
Those are 5 bands that, I practice and I actively gig with. I do a lot of session work and a lot
Yeah.
of playing with other people and stuff. I actually...
And a lot of educational work too,
yes,
teaching kids.
yes. Yeah, so I teach private lessons at one of the local music stores in Grand Island, and I'm also the percussion instructor at one of the Grand Island high schools.
Sick. That's beautiful.
So I'm playing it, I'm doing it, I'm passing it on.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the most charitable thing you can do with knowledge is
Oh, man.
is give it to others.
Right.
So for Grave Key, you did pretty much just single session,
Yep.
drums, some
Yep.
percussion. So Stone the Thrones.
I play percussion with them.
Okay.
I also I've started to be their keyboard player as well. That's a whole kind of can of worms trying to think like a piano player
Yeah.
or keys player and a percussionist at the same time.
And switching gears
Oh,
maybe even
man.
too in between songs.
There's actually, so we recorded a song called Soul Healer. It's on our recent album that we released back in May.
Okay.
And I play all the percussion stuff on it, like all the way from claps and snaps all the way to tambourine, congas, bongos, all of it.
Sick.
But I also record a synth solo.
Okay.
Like that's just like super duper crazy, like very technical. I mean, technical in the fact that it's like very, very fast flowing or whatever, but I'm just using the same like minor pentatonic scale that everyone is known and loved.
Yeah,
so.
but with your flair on it.
Right,
too.
right,
Okay, okay. So then moving on from that, your solo EP,
Yes.
the Cross Cultural Connections.
Yes.
What was like the influence for that?
I think you know, kind of like I was stating before, I have a lot of musical influences.
Yeah.
You know, I have the African stuff that was passed on to me from my dad. You know, the Latin influence from growing up listening to a lot of Latin music and stuff. You know, the really cool like math rock synth jazz stuff that I also love. So it's just like, for me, that's why I called it cross cultural connections, because
Okay.
I'm connecting all of my influences. And the reason I guess, like, if anyone can take anything from that EP, like, I want to communicate to people that I am all of the things that have influenced me.
Yeah. The amalgamation
Right.
of all of the things.
The sum of all of the parts.
Yes, exactly. Very beautifully put. Okay. Really fun EP too.
Thank you.
On that tip, would you ever curate soundtracks for a movie?
Like, you talking about me making like being kind of like a percussion film composer, you talking about?
Yeah, like I imagine like essentially a Foley worker,
Right,
but
right.
somebody who does that for
Right.
orchestral,
Right.
or even just like if it's
Right.
a really heavy percussion soundtrack influence.
I think
movie.
I'm immediately thinking of the Black Panther
Okay.
movie soundtrack, just
Yeah.
because of all of like the different influences and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it would test my creative skills. I feel like it'd be a very nice challenge to take up.
What's something that has changed in your view about music making or your involvement in it from when you've started
I think,
till now?
yeah, I think my playing style and the things that I try to emphasize have changed drastically throughout, you know, kind of my formative years.
Okay.
As much as I'd love to say that I can play super duper crazy chops behind the drums, I've never been that player to have a very detailed vocabulary.
Yeah.
I feel like my sense of groove and just being able to just hold the rhythm, at least behind the drum set, has definitely changed a lot.
Yeah.
I've definitely become a lot more intentional in my playing style.
Okay. That's, I don't know. That's something that I feel like a lot of people miss. A lot of people try to be too aloof.
Right. It's like, don't get me wrong, you know, I think experimenting with some of the wonky stuff, you know, you think about like some of the really cool, like avant-garde jazz stuff. It's like, there's some of those things, like, I mean, I'm not trying to, you know, discredit it. It's, you know, it's a very, very unique art form, but it's like, you're being too much of, being too goofy of a goober. You know what I mean?
But sometimes I feel like, you know how we were talking about, sometimes you can be so ironic that you envelop in that irony.
Right.
I feel like in the same way where there is like this view of, oh, this doesn't take any effort, anybody can do this, to the point where it's like, oh, actually,
right,
a lot of
like
effort
those
is
white
going
kind
into
of looking, you know, from a distance, kind of those white looking paintings is like,
yeah.
you know,
Or, you know, I mean, even too, going back to like Daniel Johnston,
right,
outsider artist,
right,
it's like, oh, how many people are like, oh, he's just playing the same four chords on the little Fisher Price piano.
Well, I mean, I
could do
think about the Shags, for instance. Are you familiar with the Shags?
that. Yeah,
Like,
sad story, but very
right.
interesting.
It's one of those things. It's like that pure, unadulterated, just like music.
Yep.
Like 100% creativity with like almost 0% skill.
Yep. And going back to with like the Picasso thing, that pursuit, and why maybe so many people who have reached a pinnacle of what their creative abilities are to them, look at, you know, bands like the Shags. I'd say even, you know, Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart were amazing, but so many people would look at their stuff and say, oh, that's
right. Well, like you think about,
undigestible.
right. Like I remember it was so funny. I did a Wikipedia search and I found out I was on this page as like the list of all of the possible time signatures that have ever been like written.
Okay.
And I was like 1960, and I was like, how do you even, like, I couldn't conceptualize it. All right. It's think about like 4/4 with like 3 extra 16th notes.
That's so
I know, but Frank Zappa.
Was that Frank
It
Zappa?
was a song called, and I apologize, this is not the most PG title. Keep It Greasy.
That's
But
one
it's
thing
just
that he
like,
did.
it was one of those things. It's like, especially as like a 10-year-old with like somewhat unmoderated internet access.
Oh yeah.
It's like I learned how to play in 1916, but I'm not gonna tell my mom like what I learned it from.
Yeah. You said you were listening to him like how old?
Like 10 or
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to Frank Zappa until I was like 18.
Right.
Or something.
Well, see, and that's like the thing. It's like, growing up listening to all of these super duper crazy artists.
Yeah.
Like I remember actually my first foray into like listening to jazz. I remember my dad had a CD by the jazz fusion band Spyro Gyra.
Okay.
And it's just like the really super duper crazy jazz fusion. It's like going from that to Zappa to like, I miss out on a lot of the more conventional, like, hey, like I remember I was hanging out with some friends and the song Mr. Brightside came on.
Oh yeah.
I don't know the lyrics to it. I have like a very like
Wait, you don't know the killer?
right.
Yeah. Okay.
It was like, so I miss out on a lot of that stuff. So it's like I've got, when I think about whenever I go to like Malcolm's house and like I'm playing like all my cool stuff, like everyone's just like, what is this stuff? And I'm like, but I also don't know like the I think I've in total I've probably listened to 2 full Taylor Swift songs, and that's about it. And like, but you think about the influence she has today on the music world. It's like I don't listen to Taylor Swift, but I listen to Cassiopeia.
Yeah. Also, too, I would say like, just because I don't listen to Taylor Swift,
Right,
she's
right.
not for me. She's not for me. She's got her whole
Right.
demographic.
Oh man.
But it is interesting to see how, I don't know, musical tastes at such a young age. I don't know. There's always the argument of like kids shouldn't listen to
Right.
like this music or this music or this music, and
Right.
it's like, man, as soon as you start inhibiting and
Right.
creating barriers and like exploring what they like and stuff
Right.
like that, and how much fun music is out there, especially for kids.
Right. I was actually watching a YouTube video by a YouTuber called Tensorcruel talking about like, you think about like kids' toys.
Yeah.
And like, if they have like a toy piano, it's like this, like, it's like the, the C major scale, and that's all the notes that you
Yeah.
can play in. It's like, is that beneficial for kids, or do they just need to see, all of the chromaticism and stuff to know what options there are?
Yeah. I say give them C minor.
That's what I'm saying.
Make them sad.
Dude, C half minor. we're going Zen harmonic up in here.
We're gonna make kids new age Buddhist hippies.
Oh man.
Thank you, Fisher Price. That's so funny. I always see those, little 7 fucking battery.
Oh
little
man. Triple A
keyboards.
too.
Yeah, and, I don't know. It just is. It's weird how that stuff is so accessible, and you can't get a goddamn cord anywhere to save your life.
No.
At least under an arm and a leg.
Right.
Like,
oh,
my
man.
God.
Yeah, no. It's like like those little like teeny tiny like Orff marimbas that they have in like the elementary schools. Like,
Yeah.
Like, why don't I just like shift all of the keys and like play like, a different order or whatever? Like, I'm not saying rules are meant to be broken all the time, but like it's okay to push the envelope every once in a while when it comes to creativity.
Exactly, and I feel like that's an interesting thing that the school system will be learning as the influx of, our generation comes in and starts taking the mantle on that. Like,
Just wait.
the boundary pushing.
Oh. But like I just hope at that. I was gonna say I just hope like when I turn 50, I'm not like a big like curmudgeon. Just like these kids these days.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean it's inevitable, but I'd
learning
like
to pass the torch in some sense is definitely an inherent value. How many components are in your ideal like percussion drum set?
Oh man. One thing, and I've told some of my friends this too. Like I am For a percussionist, I'm like the least gear-headed person out there. Like I know there are percussionists like I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's a local percussionist, but he's got like he brings a trailer full of percussion stuff for his setup
Okay.
everywhere. But like, you know, for me, like ideal in terms of like something that I can, you know, feasibly play. Like, you know, I don't want to be like those crazy like, you know, drum sets with like 30 toms or whatever.
Yeah.
And just keep it as simple as possible. I'm thinking 3 congas here, a pair of bongos, a set of timbales with cowbells and stuff, with maybe some like cymbals and stuff up here. I'm thinking like a djembe and maybe like a percussion trigger synthesizer. Like they have like
little 8-pad or something.
no, I'm talking about like it's like a full like drum head and you can trigger. Yeah, they make those. One of those, you know, can I get my little creative side and maybe like a surdo or something, kind of like it's like a floor tom bass drum thing that's used in Brazil.
Okay.
Have one of those and like, you know, all of like, you know, stakers and all types of, you know,
Extra
oh
odds,
man,
chimes.
oh, ribbon crasher,
Okay. So
like
A
you know
lot of-
something compact but like has pretty much anything you need.
okay, but still has a little razzle dazzle.
Right.
too.
Oh, that's like 90% of my job when I'm playing. Not to say that I don't focus on the rhythms and stuff and the technique.
It
but it's
is a
like
little flair.
you have to.
Yeah.
Like I remember we were dassed out. We were playing our first gig at the Zoo Bar last week, and it was just like I went up there with my tambourine in front of the audience, and like we were just oh man,
You gotta get
oh man, I can play the heck out of a tambourine. I can play the heck out of a cowbell solo.
love-
I actually on one of the Stone the Thrones songs, Rewind. It was just kind of funny because like the way that we recorded, like I laid my basic percussion tracks and then like I really like felt things out like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna try having a shaker here or I'm gonna have a cowbell. Well, anyway, I was just grooving. It was like kind of a low piece of, like the energy is still going, but there's not a lot of stuff going on. I filled that thing with a cowbell solo. And it stayed in the record. Like you can hear it and it's just like you know, it's just like so much of my job as a percussionist is like it's literally to accent everything, whether it be, you know, with the playing that I do, but also like with my performance antics and stuff.
Yeah. It brings life to
Right.
both the session, the live show.
Right. Oh man, there's a story of like well, you know, one of the forefathers of playing congas, Carlos Patoto Valdez. He's long gone, but he was one of those guys. He had this thing where he would like hop on top of the congas and stomp on them to make beats. It's
So-
just like, you know, the showmanship.
Caught up in the groove
Oh,
too, and people
man.
going crazy.
Well, yeah, well, and that's like the thing though too. Like when you're playing a lively gig, that energy is just so. I mean, like being able to, you know, and have that interplay with the crowd is like one of the things that drives my, you know, performance. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to look anyone in the face depending on how I'm feeling the gig, but
Yeah.
you'll make sure that you know that I'm grooving. You know.
That's such a powerful kinetic moment
Oh,
to share
man.
with like the crowd when you're just all caught
Oh,
up in the groove.
dude. That's what I love about especially like experiencing live music as an audience member.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the pieces of advice I would always want to give to like a up and coming musician.
Yeah.
The best way to like gain musical knowledge is going to listen. It's something that especially early in my professional music career, so to speak, that I feel like I neglected. Like, not to say that I don't have FOMO or, you know, or anything like that, but it's just like you can get so busy working on your like craft and your stuff that you don't get time to like engage with and you know, appreciate
Yeah.
other, you know, people doing that same.
I think about it too. It's like, you know, you can't, or I mean, you can, but it's got to be a tragic experience just spending your whole life as a creator,
Right.
and not being a consumer.
It'd be
once
so,
in
I
a
mean, it's
while.
kind of like being
the
you know,
burnout.
that, yeah, you know, it's just like, well, and it does inevitably lead to burnout because your mind can only process. I mean, you can only churn out so many ideas before you have to look for other options.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, the Shags, they didn't have a But it's one of those things though. Like
They
there's
didn't
a
have
different
choice. There was a
right
lot
there.
of
Oh man,
that's
you
a
should
sad
definitely. It's a
situation.
very very unfortunate situation.
Shouts out the Shags. I mean,
They did have a couple performances later in life, which is really cool, and they had the resurgence.
Light in the Attic, which is like I want to say an LA based pressing and label and production label. They just recently did a vinyl pressing of whatever the something something of the world,
right.
knowledge of the
Right.
world, understanding of the world by the
Yes,
Shags,
right.
that first album. I mean, it's cool that now they can get maybe some residuals, and get some money
Right.
off of that,
But at the same time, though, I mean, they also, when they stopped playing, they had stopped playing for so long. So it was like, you don't know how much of that connection between the music and the circumstances.
Maybe they all got good. What if they all just came back for the reunion shows and just
Dude, just
we all
killed
just
it.
knew how to
Right.
play now?
Right. No, it was actually kind of funny. So they had all of the sisters sing, but the band that accompanied them learned the parts as they are in the recording.
Could you imagine transcribing that
Dude.
over? That'd be fun.
It'd be a challenge, especially especially with like as much music theory knowledge and stuff that I have. It's just like I'm gonna really have to understand what I'm like learning and saying.
Yeah. Again, glad that they got their resurgence.
Right.
And you're right. It is a true testament of like that creative passion. Really just pushing out something that
I mean, I would even say
never,
squeezed out. Really.
Yeah, hasn't ever been heard before though.
Right.
And couldn't even
so
be
original.
replicated.
It's right. In
a world where everything is so copied and
right.
regurgitated and stuff. Maybe original stuff isn't going to be good, but it's going to be original.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the thing though too. I can think about like all of a lot of the concern around AI music even. Yeah. Like that's a whole other can of worms. But it's just like these conversations that are surrounding what it means to have musical skill.
Yeah.
It's just there's
even comprehension.
Oh, right.
Active listening.
Right.
It's weird when I don't know. Have you ever met people who just are like, "Oh, I only listen to like the lyrics of like a song."
I know a couple people.
I don't listen to like the percussion.
I mean, I will be honest though. For a decent amount of time, I was the guy that did not listen to the lyrics.
See, but
I know. I mean, I'm just right. I mean, that's why people sample, I guess.
Yeah,
but
you can have an instrumental tape.
Right.
It's hard to have an acapella tape.
Right, unless you're like a church choir or something. That just sounds.
Or deaf poetry.
Have you ever heard of have you ever like Bulgarian girls choirs?
I don't think so.
Dude.
Bulgarian girl choirs.
Right.
Okay. Are they like specific with like
Bulgaria? Yeah.
Well, like specific with like their performances and
yeah, it's like a very like because the thing is that like the way that they sing, the harmony and the vocal technique is so unique to their specific sound, and like the way that they are able to shape their overtones with such dissonance.
Okay.
Oh man.
Is it kind of like the Thruvian throat singing?
A little bit. I mean, not necessarily. It's not throat singing, but it's just like a certain.
But just in that way where they're almost like, it's just strange how they're harmonizing.
Right.
Yeah, that overtone and then their like undertone that are just like.
Right. When I think though too, the
things.
influence of those types of singing, traditions have really influenced the way that even like vocalists learn how to tune their vocals to mesh and be able to balance with the rest of with the other singers.
Yeah. Moving on from that, I just had some community questions to wrap it up, and then we'll get on to the set. So let's see, first community question that I made up here is, how many instruments technically fall under the title percussion?
Oh man,
Do you know off top?
I would say at least 800.
800. Okay. So 800.
I mean, don't quote me on that, but
approximate. We're doing
right,
approximates.
right.
What is the most overused sound?
Oh man. I would say like stock drum sets that you find with Pro Tools.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's so
I wish
easy.
they were a little bit more specific. They
Right.
just said what's the most overused sound.
I mean,
we'll say that, but then I'm gonna also add, what do you think is the most like played out like percussion instrument? Like, you think the fucking 808 clap is terrible, or like you think like cowbell's still coming back? Triangle.
I think the 808 cowbell is one of the most underused sounds.
Oh, totally. Especially with
man.
like
the little
funk, like Detroit funk.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
I would say like the 808 bass.
it's bad.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I love that I love the percussiveness of it.
I'm gonna put in just a dry 808 bass hit right here while we're talking about it, so that
Dude.
people know. Oh, it's terrible right there. So I hate it.
Right. Well, it's like they don't mess with any of the retune speed. It's just like the same stock.
No, yeah, going in and changing the parameters on it is such a waste of time too, because there's so much other stuff you could just
Yeah. It's
work with.
right.
Um,
like there's so many other cool bass, synth bass plugins that you could use, but you just choose to use the 808
Yeah.
or whatever it's
Which
called.
I do fuck with, sometimes if I'm in a rush or something, and I
Right.
just need something here just
Right.
to get
Oh,
it
yeah.
out. Put that in there. When I come back to it here in a bit, I'll swip it out for, something that I actually want there or something.
Right.
But yeah, that 808 bass. There was a time in 2016,
Oh,
2015.
dude,
I really liked it.
It's kind of like how people like relegate grunge to like 3 years in the
Yeah.
90s, and it's just like the trap era is like 2012 to
Ooh.
2016.
Yeah, that was a time.
Vine was still a thing.
Rest in peace, Vine. The last community question that I made up that we got here is, can I skip working out if I'm playing percussion at a show later tonight? I don't know when they
If-
asked this, so it might
It's okay.
be late. It might be too late, but go ahead.
I would say if you sweat like I do,
Okay.
I'd say yes.
Okay.
I sweat like a goon.
Put in the effort.
Right. Like
Make
don't
yourself sweat too.
Like, I mean, that's like one of the things that I feel like is another thing that I think not a lot of people understand. The physical, like, effort that you need to put in to play drums or percussion.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's a lot of upper body, lower body, just
Got the
breathing,
body of a Greek
cardio. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like, just sublet when you would go to the gym for
Right.
like sets,
Right.
play more shows,
Right.
or have more jam sessions and really give it your all. So that was the last question that I had. I think we're gonna wrap up the interview segment of this episode right now. But Keeran, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
It's been such a pleasure chopping it up
Yes,
and
yes.
getting to know you a little bit more.
Likewise.
So I'm going to put down below all of the links for, music, where to find you, YouTube, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, is there anything you want to promote or tell people that you got going
Oh,
on?
goodness. Just come support my bands. Follow me, on Facebook, Instagram. I gig a lot, so
Is that the best place though to figure out
Instagram,
when you're
yes,
running
yes.
shows? Instagram. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll get all your socials
All
down
of
there
it.
too. Any future projects we can keep an eye out for?
Little birdie told me I might be working on getting a jazz fusion album made.
Let's go. Okay, sick. Okay, so we'll keep an eye out for that as well. But without further ado, we're going to move it into the performance segment of the show. We're going to get the camera reset up here, but stay tuned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
right. And with that, I'm gonna flip this bitch around. That concludes the session, episode 3. Thank you so much, Keeran.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. I'm excited to get this edited out. Anything you want to say real quick before we bounce?
Shout out to Christina Applegate. If you know it, you know it.
Christina Applegate?
Christina Applegate. Shout out to her. If you know, you know.
Bet. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in.